Good afternoon, welcome to UK Column News. It is the 15th of January 2015 and it's just gone 1 o'clock. Myself, Louise Collins, Brian Gerrish and Nick are here in Plymouth. And we're starting the show with Guy Taylor, who we couldn't get through to yesterday because he was at court, but he is at home now. And he's with us now. Hi, Guy. I didn't do the weather, sorry.
That's okay. We'll get on to the important things, I think.
Guy, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you well. You hear me okay?
We can't hear him.
Just,
can you hear me?
Just say again, Guy.
Can you hear me?
You're very... Hold on.
Hear me now?
I can hear you, but you're very faint at the moment.
Oh, right.
Let's just see whether we can improve sound. Obviously, somebody doesn't want you speaking to the UK column.
Yeah, it sounds like it, yeah.
Oh, that's
better. We can hear you a bit better now. That's great.
Right, okay.
How did yesterday go then? And tell us all about it.
Right, well, we had a great turnout at Hereford Magistrates Court. People came even from as far afield as Scotland and Ireland. Flew over from Ireland. It's the ongoing case with us and Bodnam Manor. So, this is where we were forcibly evicted on April the 2nd by the police and the bailiffs using a fraudulent document. And, of course, since this time, someone believes they bought the manor, and, of course, we went back up there and took the place back. So I was ultimately charged with trespass.
Okay.
You got me?
Guy, we just caught the last piece of that about trespass, but I can hear you loud and clear now. Right,
okay. Well, I was saying it was a great turnout. We had people from all over the country come, from even as far afield as Ireland. It's an ongoing case with the ownership of Bodnam Manor, whereby the police and the bailiffs turfed out myself and Linda, along with the 20 tenants, back in April, and they used a fraudulent court document to do so. So we were making an application to subpoena Judge Piers Higgins QC from the county court because he's refused the CPS and the police access to my files, believe it or not. So we made an application under Section 97 of the 1980 County Courts Act, which John Hurst has helped me greatly with. And when we got there, we had a new judge, which is very strange because obviously we've had the same judge for a long time. And the new judge is called Robinson. So it was an interesting day, and some interesting results happened with it. So everything's going well. Ultimately what's happened is they have to produce the original documents because we're questioning the legitimacy of them. So the judge has said they have to produce the original documents. I'm not allowed to cross-examine the claimed new owner of Bodnam Manor, so they are saying that I have to get a lawyer to do that for me. So that's obviously still going to be ongoing. But I am allowed to cross-examine all the police witnesses and the head of the bailiff company from UK Evict. So again, that's very good. It's only a summary offence. It's a trespass claim, which is only been out since 2012 under the Legal Aid and Sentencing Act. And it's going to be going on for 2 to 3 days on February the 9th and 10th. So that will be at least the 9th and 10th at the moment. So that's going to be, that's the position with it. So we have a trial date set.
Brilliant. That's good news.
So just for people who may have joined UK Column News for the first time, what we're talking about here with Guy Taylor concerns the authorities in Britain. So essentially we're talking about the courts, but in some circumstances the police are helping as well. But we're seeing criminal activity running through the courts, which is allowing property and in some cases businesses as well to be stolen from their rightful owners. And this is with the assistance of fraudulent court documents, obviously orchestration of procedures in the courts. Very interesting, Guy, that you're saying that essentially you're able to cross-examine some people, but then the judge is saying, well, you can cross-examine these people, but no, you can't cross-examine another set of people. So high orchestration of the court, and of course I take it that none of this is happening in front of a jury.
No, none of this is happening in front of a jury. And so it was basically, because he's a new judge, we had a jousting match for about an hour and a half. The court was full of people, but of course I was trying to test the water with him because I don't know this judge. and he was obviously trying to see what I was about, and he's obviously been given a great deal of information about me because a couple of little places I tried to take him, he closed me down on quite quickly, so he's obviously fairly well versed. I mean, I was stating that the facts of the matter are that every purported official document that have been presented by the CPS in this matter, from the Land Registry to the County Court to the High Court, is either fraudulent, not in the prescribed form, the wrong document, or a combination of all of these things. So when he turned down our application to call the judge, the reason he did so was because he said it wasn't in the prescribed form, which is very good and very interesting because I'd mentioned prescribed form and we're holding them to account on all this documentation. So I don't know how they're going to get this documentation because we know at present it either doesn't exist or the copies we've been given of stuff are clearly fraudulent. So we're going to have to move forward with great interest if the case does go ahead on the for a trial on the 9th and the 10th.
Yeah.
But again, you know, we've recently got we've also heard this morning that 5:30 Tom Crawford's had a rude awakening.
I was just about to come to that guy because I'm about to cover it now. I've been talking to his daughter Amanda just via Facebook, and we're literally just about to cover that story when we're finished with you, Guy.
So if Guy stays with us...
Yes, Guy, if you want to stay with us and comment after
Certainly.
we've just done this next story.
Well, we just introduce it. Back on the 23rd of July last year, we were reporting that a number of people have gathered in Russell Lane. This is where the bailiffs were turning up. This is up in Nottingham. And what was wonderful was that people from all over Britain had turned up to show support for the family. So these were some of the photographs of supporters. Peaceful supporters, of course. Some of the banners here. What's the mission? No eviction. We've got yet another case of fraudulent eviction where people are being thrown out of their homes on created documentations, a created case. And of course, this is extremely worrying because the courts are now clearly not upholding justice. We've got the courts assisting people losing their homes and businesses. But what was wonderful last year was many people turned up. And what was the result? Well, of course, the result was the bailiffs eventually turned tail and left. So, Louise, update us what's been happening this morning.
Got to say thanks to Wendy for letting us know about this. I then got on to Tom's daughter, Amanda, and asked her for exactly what had happened this morning. So, according to Amanda, at 5:50 this morning, this is in her words, my mum heard a noise, so she got up. She looked out of the window and there was a car she didn't recognise on the street. She watched it and it drove down to the bottom of our street and just sat there and then turned its lights off. Next thing, the man, who was a bailiff, has seen my mum at the window and said, Mrs. Crawford, I have a letter here to deliver to you. Shall I put it on your post box? As they don't have a letterbox. My mum shouted no. He then began banging on the door. Mum ignored it. He then walked off down the street and Dad, meaning Tom, then got up and went down to him as he was sitting in his car on the phone in the dark. Dad said, what do you think you're doing, banging on my door in the dark at this hour of the morning? He replied, I've got a letter to deliver to you, Mr. Crawford. Dad then told him to clear off, followed by the fact he was going to ring the police. The bailiff told whoever he was talking to on the phone that the police had been called. He then drove off, and at around 8:15 he returned accompanied with the police. He kept talking about delivering these letters he had. With that, they've seen him walk off away from the driveway and going out of the house, Dad discovered the County Court bailiff had taped the letter to the front door. So that's the court. They're due to be evicted on January the 23rd at 10 a.m. Which is next Friday. So there you go. That's what's happened this morning.
So once again, it's all there, isn't it? Fraudulent documents, no signatures, no seals. The police just following along the normal processes. The police follow the bailiffs. The police in general, but not always, are there to protect the bailiffs. Rather than to see there's no breach of the peace. Any comments from you, Guy, on because you know this case, of course, yourself?
Yeah, well, we know this case well, and I mean, Tom was actually at my case yesterday, so I mean, it's not going to happen. Let's get that over first and foremost. I don't know why they're drawing this sort of line in the sand. And the unfortunate thing is, what the people don't realise, but which we've got letters from the land registry that support us in what I'm saying now, is that every conveyancing lawyers in this country have a thing called a key account with the land registry, and they ring up and give their key account number to whoever probably they normally use at the land registry, and are able to swap title deeds around with the land registry. And this is where this part of this fraud is coming from. And I'd ask everybody who's interested in what we're saying to get in touch with us, and Tom's case especially, because that's an emergency thing here, and they can do so through certain Facebook groups, which I can give over, you know, if you want, yeah, which is Eviction Fraud of the Banks, Beat the Bailiffs, or if you go to any of the response units that we've got everywhere that respond to evictions and you know, anti-eviction squads.
Yeah, and they seem to be working very well, don't they, Guy?
Yeah, they're working well, and I mean, ultimately, this is where their problem is, and this is why I think it was important we got it over yesterday. If things aren't in the prescribed form, they shouldn't happen, and this is where we're finding that it's the actual lawyers throughout this country that are causing us these problems, because they've been operating in some sort of culture where they can do what they want. And as I've just explained about the land registry, that's how simple it is for anyone's property to get changed over. And poor old Tom and his wife Sue, they paid their mortgage. The fact that the bank changed this from a endowment mortgage into an interest-only mortgage, and they're trying to steal their house now they've retired. And so it's not going to happen. We're going to make sure that we're there in force, and you know, this is where we're going to go. Then they better bring the right paperwork, else they're getting arrested.
Yeah. So that's January the 23rd at 10 a.m. Anybody who can make it there to support Tom. Again, it was a very successful event back in July, peaceful, and People Power kind of won the day that day. So
hopefully we'll
do it again.
Just Guy, I've got a figure of 43,000 in my head as repossessions of properties last year, or evictions. Is that correct? Can you tell us?
I understand that is the correct figure, Brian. And the interesting thing is how many of them were actually legal, not even lawful, but we're saying legal, because again, when all the paperwork we're getting, we're telling people to go down and hand over a request and notice to the county courts. If anyone's had a problem with the possessions, they should go down and ask to inspect their court file. And if they get in touch with us, we'll give them the document. Because when we get access to the file, we find out that it's all been dealt with in a private capacity, and they've not been inside a public court. And we're finding out that judges and judges' families are actually involved with property development. And I've received some information about that recently.
Well, one thing's for sure, I've just been corrected. The figure is actually 47,000, but of course, none of this is appearing at the moment in the so-called mainstream press and media. They're giving it a good ignoring. These are very foolish reporters because, of course, fraud and corruption on this scale is eventually going to be taking the homes and businesses away from people who are involved in mainstream media. And of course, these are star chambers. You have a court where the only person who decides the rules is the judge. So you are going into a star chamber, false documents, and in previous cases where you've talked to us, Guy, you've been talking about law firms creating their own stamps as if they were a bona fide court stamp. And we've got the land registry being privatised. So fairly soon we will have corrupt international banks fiddling interest rates, depriving investors, absolute fraud and corruption within the banking system itself. And what are they then doing? They're stealing people's property through totally corrupt and fraudulent courts. You couldn't make it up.
You couldn't. Guy, I think we need to have a little chat with Gordon Bowden. Actually, he's exposing the things about what's going on with bankers as well. So it'd be interesting to get you two together to have a chat as well from some of the findings that he's found.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Guy.
Thanks,
we'll
Guy.
move on. Stay with us if you'd like to. What better place to go after hearing about the decline of UK fraud, corruption, lies, false documentation, and of course an utter breakdown of justice well, it doesn't happen by accident. Now, we were privileged to be given an exclusive look at one of David Cameron's early electioneering posters. Let's have a look at it. Well, here we are, and it's got a distinctly UK French flavour, Vote Conservative. Here we are in 2015, and David Cameron is saying, Je suis un grand Charlie. Now, for English people, and luckily we still are allowed to speak English in this country, that translates roughly that David Cameron is saying he is a big Charlie. And we're going to say, look at the text here. Vote for me and the final destruction of the UK and the Constitution. So there's no more NHS, jobs, pension, justice, education, national identity of pride. Vote Conservative in 2015. You know it makes sense. Well, I mean, what a great job the Tories have done. And I did notice a little bit of NLP here because there's an extra space put in the French Conservatives at the top. So we've got Vote Con. So it does look like this is a genuine Conservative poster. And the UK column, of course, is strongly backing David Cameron to be re-elected because, you know, if your aim is to destroy the country, this is the man you need. I better say there was a little bit of cynicism there. One or two people seem to miss some of our jokes. So we just feel that this man is so appalling. We thought Tony Blair was bad. We could discuss the relative merits, but clearly Cameron, I think he's beginning to come apart. This is not a man who could run anything, let alone Britain. Is anybody really going to vote for David Cameron?
He looks a bit dopey in that picture.
He's increasingly...
Look at the eyes.
He's increasingly looking dopey. But he's coming out with some dangerous things. Let's have a look at what's happening.
He's not bringing this out. A researcher has developed a homemade bugging device and has posted a list of the components, instruction and source codes online. The device looks like a USB charger and can collect every keystroke made on a nearby keyboard, and then it sends it back where info can be stored. Sami Kamkar, who developed this after discovering that Microsoft Wireless keyboards sent keystrokes to PCs and was simple to intercept, so he decided to, well, Sony can do it, Google can do all this, why can't the people do it? So he went and he put it out there. So I started having a little look into Sami and found him very interesting. It was Sami who released the fastest ever virus that hit MySpace a few years ago. His home has been raided by US Secret Service under the Patriot Act, and he created Skyjack, which is a custom drone, and he also created Evercookie, which appeared in a top-secret NSA document that was revealed by Edward Snowden. And his wiki page calls him a computer hacker, whistleblower, seeker of truth, and privacy and security researcher. So for £6, you can watch Sami's video. I believe it's on YouTube to see how you can make your own spying devices. And yeah.
I think what I would say to this, of course, if he can do it, then we can be sure that National Security Agency, GCHQ, with billions of pounds can...
if it can be made for £6, what are the government able to do?
A lot, but exactly. They want more. We'll come on to that.
Indeed. OK, so according to the Telegraph, motoring organisations are upset about plans to put stealth cameras on UK motorways. The plans are part of the expansion of smart motorways, and the stealth cameras will attempt to catch drivers breaking the 70-mile-an-hour speed limit. If you just bring the slide up about smart motorways.
Oh, sorry. Let's come back. Wait a minute.
And,
we'll get there. There we are.
Others are saying that the cameras are mainly being introduced to actually generate money through fines rather than to keep people safe over the 70-mile-an-hour limit. So here are the government plans for the smart motorways and what they can do.
Right. My point here, Louise, is was this ever debated in Parliament? Was there ever a debate in Parliament that we need motorways and we need smart motorways? Billions of pounds spent on the upgrade of the barriers, road charging clearly coming in. So whose
idea was it? Exactly, whose idea was it? I can't find that out.
No. Okay, well, there's worse on the way.
There is even worse on the way. Very impressed with the Mirror on this article. They are reporting in the wake of the Paris attacks, the public should not let our oily politicians, it's the Mirror's words, use the incident on a news hook for pushing through increased surveillance powers. They're also highlighting that Cameron is using the tragedy to bring in the most draconian spy powers in the world. They highlight that the intelligence agencies can already monitor our web searches and emails. With regards to Paris, they show that France already has extensive surveillance, and this did not prevent the events that happened over a week ago in Paris. And they go on to say that only regimes such as Iran, Bahrain and China have the powers that Cameron wants to introduce in this country.
Right.
And go on.
So I just wanted to say, isn't it interesting, in the little sub-headline it says, many of us feel less safe in the wake of the Charlie Hebdo terror attack. So there's the little tweet to say, oh, we all suddenly feel terribly unsafe because there's been a problem in France. So, and then they say, oh, well, all of this spying isn't the answer. There's a bit of a...
Yeah, there is a bit, but if you just have a look at some of the images that the Mirror have produced here. So you've got the Google, and I can't see because I haven't got my glasses, so do you want to read those out? The top left, the Google one.
What they say is that the top left with Google, they're saying, I've got nothing to hide argument is flawed. Increased spying powers damage freedom of expression, that's left lower. The eyeballs there, what's that saying? Mass surveillance actually works. Well, does it work? And the final one. Kid. Pardon?
Here's looking at you, kid.
Here's looking at you, kid. So what's going on here? Journalists are beginning to ask questions, but I think we've got to watch them very carefully, because why isn't the Mirror starting to really analyse what went on in France and what the background of it was?
This is very true, but they also are the ones reporting on the child abuse, them and the Sunday People, quite a lot. Those stories are coming out. So
that's true.
Compared to a lot of the other mainstream papers, the Mirror this week for me gets the better one of the mainstream awards.
Okay, so viewers of a weak disposition should look away.
Okay. So what's this story about? No, it's not about Theresa May's needing a new hairdresser, but it's about it. Yesterday at PMQs, Mrs May spoke to politicians backing Cameron's snooping charter. She told MPs that 3 terror plots have been foiled and innocent lives are at risk if security services do not get the powers that they need. According to Mrs May, 600 British citizens have travelled to Syria to fight with ISIS. She said that extra training is being given to counter-terrorist staff on how to deal with the Paris-style attack in London, and fire crews and paramedics now are being issued, or have already been issued, with bulletproof vests.
And this, of course, is one of the interesting things. We're seeing a standardisation of dress and tactics for police throughout Europe. Of course, British police running joint training colleges with Europol, the European police. And what we're seeing is the police are becoming paramilitary. So we've got stab-proof, bulletproof vests, we've got automatic weapons, we've got helmets, and they're becoming increasingly more brutal.
The streets are going to just be filled now with sort of stormtrooper-type characters walking down the street. I do believe that is what we can expect to come.
Unless we stop it by exposing it for what it really is.
Yep.
Well, let's come back to this man, because David Cameron, when he's not sitting in his most attractive wear, is constantly now pushing that we've got to be very fearful. We're going to die as a result of a fanatical Islamist death cult. They're prepared to use extremist violence. We should be very afraid. And he's basically saying, trust me, David Cameron, to protect you by increasing the spying. So the Express here got a pretty interesting article. Certainly the image, I think, is very good. So Cameron has been visiting the White House, and he's been saying the US needs to come on board with Britain to monitor social media sites to help in the fight against terror. And the little embedded image there is David Cameron saying, our ability to defend our freedoms is rooted in our economic strength and values we cherish. Well, the country is falling apart economically, so there's some weaknesses in that. But this is David Cameron now working with Obama. So we've now got this US-UK pact obviously ramping up. Can we get GCHQ and the NSA doing as much spying as possible? So if we look at a bit of the detail in this, it says that the Prime Minister will use high-level White House talks with Obama to convince him that giants such as Facebook and Twitter have a role in keeping us safe. And the two-day meeting comes in the wake of last week's atrocities in Paris and a spate of cyber attacks against high-profile US targets such as Sony and the Pentagon. So we are to believe that a company like Sony and indeed the Pentagon itself haven't got the IT capability, the nous, the know-all to defend themselves against cyber attacks. But it goes on here. Both leaders have stressed their wish to safeguard freedoms and cherish freedom of expression. Now, just before or just after Christmas, it was being reported quite widely that Obama had got the military on the American streets. I think it was in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And of course, we're now seeing FEMA units who effectively look like armed forces operating through American cities, setting up barriers, searching cars, asking for identity. So Obama doesn't seem that concerned with freedoms. And the last bit here is, well, how convenient, because they're jumping back to the killing of Lee Rigby, and Parliament, of course, was saying that the Intelligence and Security Committee discovered Facebook had shut down supposed killers' accounts, but failed to alert the security services. So we're going back to that attack, and we're saying, oh dear, the real problem is not security and terrorists, it's Facebook and social media.
Yep.
And of course, it gets better, because let's have a look at the Mirror. And well, here we are. Let's put in some details. The FBI has arrested a man for allegedly plotting an Islamic State-inspired attack on the US Capitol in Washington. Now, that's an interesting statement. We've got the allegedly, so there's no factual information here. It's alleged. And what is the Islamic State? Well, nobody can actually prove what it is, because it's a construct largely of the Americans. But here we are, allegedly the Islamic State has been plotting an attack on the US Capitol. So the man is Christopher Lee Cornell, and he apparently planned to set off a series of bombs aimed at those he allegedly considered enemies. Well, I don't know why they'd put in an allegedly, because if you're going to set off bombs, you presumably want to kill people, but maybe you consider them friends.
Yeah.
This is where I think this is an article that's been constructed. So he was arrested, it says today, on charges of attempting to kill a US government official. But have a look at this. According to FBI documents, agents first noticed Cornell after he took to Twitter to show his support for violent jihadists. So the man in the picture is apparently so stupid, he's going to plan a terrorist attack and show his support for violence on Twitter. Presumably he was just waving a little flag saying, come and get me, I'm a terrorist.
Yeah, put it outside his house, yeah, definitely. Can I just say, this looks awfully like this whole scenario. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's a series called Homeland. And
oh, sorry,
they're
just jump back to that.
They're already using the last season. I don't watch it on telly, but I watch it online. And the last series was about, it was ISI that they were battling on Homeland, and this is practically a story that the script writers at Homeland would have made. And do you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if it actually has been inspired. This whole story has been inspired by an episode of one of those programs.
I agree, Louise. I think the two things work together
Absolutely.
here, and that is that you drift in what the propaganda line is through the mainstream media and what people are seeing, and then once people have got the rough idea in their minds, then it's put into the news.
And if anything does happen, he's going to be on. They've been watching him for hours here on psychotropic drugs, and it's another thing for gun laws and everything else. That's going to be the next thing.
If we could just pop back to us, Nick, that would be helpful. I just want to make an adjustment to the next slide, if we can do that.
Right, okay.
I don't know what it is about 2015, but we're having to do a lot of live on-screen technical editing, but it's working very smoothly today, so we're not going to do that. So let's have a look at the whole of the events in France. And the Daily Mail here, extremely interesting, because we're saying they're getting squeamish over Charlie Hebdo magazine, and they're publishing an article where they are themselves not publishing the front page. So this is one of the pictures from the Daily Mail, where they're saying that magazines change hands for hundreds of pounds as it sells out in Paris within an hour, and publishers increase its print run to 5 million. So.
Whoa.
So we had the BBC, we're going to speak about them in a minute, absolutely promoting the fact that the magazine was going to publish a front page insulting Mohammed, and the BBC helping them get out their sales. And now this organisation, which I think normally prints about 30,000 copies a week, is now suddenly up to 5 million.
Can I just jump in? I saw an article earlier that there's a video going around of one of the witnesses to the Hebdo attacks, and possibly one of the journalists, said that one of the attackers had actually bright blue eyes and didn't seem.
Well, there's lots of questions to be asked, but if we say at the moment that some form of terrorist attack happened, if we say we're going to believe the mainstream media, a lot of questions, but at the moment, so. How did this situation happen? Well, a magazine published a pretty inflammatory front page, and at the moment most of the mainstream press is not dealing with that, but some are. So if we just have a look at this here, we've got David Cameron on the streets, circled, and he is supporting a magazine which, according to the mainstream press today, has come out with a front page again mocking Mohammed, and it features a masturbating nun, the Pope dressed as a mafia boss, a woman in a burqa lifting her robes to show she's wearing stockings and suspenders, and nothing else. So the magazine, which has also been accused of being anti-Semitic, but here's David Cameron. He's gone to France. Well, initially he says he's gone to pledge support for the victims who've all been murdered, but then he starts tweeting support for this magazine, and this is what the magazine is dealing in. So we can come straight back to David Cameron here. We're saying this man is looking dopey. I think he's so dopey because he doesn't actually have the mental acumen to control the country, to run the country. He is just a puppet. But Stephen Glover, I think, wins the prize from the Daily Mail. This is his article. I abominate the Charlie Hebdo murders. I also believe the magazine is malign and bigoted. And what does he have to say? He says he's very definitely not Charlie if the proposition entails embracing what I take to be the core values of the magazine, which seem to me to be bigoted, intolerant, and often puerile. Ideal magazine for the Prime Minister. And then he goes on, the new cover, which depicts the Prophet Muhammad, deliberately sets out to stir things up further. So here is David Cameron, British Prime Minister, not just doing it from Westminster, but he gets presumably on a plane, flies over to Paris. He is helping to stir up hatred. He knows he's doing it, and there's a very nasty game going on here, we say at UK Column, to help create the crash of the collision of civilizations. And this was the last bit from Stephen Glover. Not many among the millions of people who have identified with Charlie Hebdo can be aware that its entire raison d'etre is a hatred of all religion. Stéphane Charbonnier, the magazine's editor who was murdered last week, once asserted that his magazine was above all secular and atheist. So we're now coming down to it. This magazine spewing out hate, it's been doing it for years. It's done it to such an extent that people have reacted. Now, we can have another discussion about how the events unfolded, who was stirring up the people who carried out the murders. That's another question. But let's look at the fact that we have not senior British politicians. We have David Cameron, Prime Minister, supporting this horrific magazine, knowing that what he is doing is going to stir up hatred in communities. It's utterly despicable.
It is. Can I just ask, do we know where this year's Bilderberg's going to be?
I'm afraid I don't, but it'll be interesting to watch.
Just to wonder what is going to be the top of the whole agenda. Interesting that Cameron's over now having chats with Obama at the moment. You know, it's not long away, usually June. So
we've got Davos coming up as well.
Davos is coming up as well. So if anyone does know where the next Bilderberg is, can you let us know? And we will do the same. We will let you know as soon as we find out. But just be interesting to see what the top of the agenda is going to be.
Clash of civilizations, maybe.
Yeah.
So we're just going to follow on with this one because we cannot forget the BBC over this issue. As we said yesterday, BBC absolutely crowing and providing free advertising for Charlie Hebdo magazine to say, well, you need to get out there and buy the next edition. Free publicity on the back of the licence fee payer. So anybody who's paying their television licence at the moment, effectively public money, courtesy of the BBC, being used to whip up hatred. This isn't accidental. This is orchestrated with the government via the BBC through the political parties. Something nasty at work. And we can bring in...
something nasty.
Very nasty. We can bring in something nasty, which is Nick Clegg. And, OK, he's already had a go at Nigel Farage, leader of UKIP, saying that Farage was using the incident to whip up hatred in immigration. Well, that's pretty interesting when Nick Clegg's partner, David Cameron, is the one travelling overseas to do that very same thing.
Job, yeah.
But here's Nick Clegg. He's been condemning a Lib Dem MP as insensitive, crass and stupid because he put out a tweet over the Paris attacks in which he said, "Je suis Palestinian." And what's Mr. Clegg had to say? Well, he's refused to suspend the MP despite condemning his tweet, crass, stupid, insensitive and offensive. But he also called Mr. Ward's suggestion that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, should not have appeared alongside other national leaders for a march after the Paris attacks, very stupid. So here is unelected Deputy Prime Minister calling in his own MPs crass, stupid, insensitive, offensive. Why has he got his knickers in a twist? Am I allowed to say that on the UK column? I think I've just done it. Why has Nick Clegg got his knickers in a twist over this tweet? Well, here's the answer buried in the Telegraph's article. Because apparently he's had a letter from the Israeli ambassador urging him to act over the offensive and shocking remarks. So we've got a very, very interesting situation here. Originally, Charlie Hebdo magazine was being accused of being anti-Semitic. With no time at all, the magazine's taken to court. Then it publishes what is blasphemy for the Muslims. And what happens? We support the magazine. Well, let's remind ourselves where this goes, because here was a picture we showed a little while ago with David Cameron once again showing his unbreakable support for Israel. And I believe this was taken from Conservative Friends of Israel.
Yes, it was.
And we can also have a little look at what Russia Today has been reporting. UK's shadow government leader opposes the Israeli invasion. So this is all talking about the Palestinian situation. But let's follow it up with the Jewish Chronicle, because here is Ed Miliband clearly saying not only is he a supporter of Israel, he's also saying he's a Zionist. So the key question for me is what exactly are British politicians doing at the moment? Are they there for the best interests of the British people, or are they working a global agenda for foreign powers? If they are, I believe that is known as treason.
I think so.
And you found something very interesting
did.
about the reports on what was happening in Paris.
I did. And just before I go there, thank you to Kenneth, who has told us that it is in Austria, apparently. So thank you, the Bilderberg.
The Bilderberg meeting.
So in Austria, apparently. So we'll see what we can do. But yes, I did mention it yesterday, where the female world leaders had been airbrushed out of the big promotional picture. Well, here it is, and it is in other papers as well, but I just thought I'd highlight this. And an Orthodox Israeli newspaper airbrushes female world leaders out of that very famous picture.
Why would you do that? I really don't know.
I don't know
why. There must be some reason for that, but I don't know why. So if anybody out there can help us with that, why would you want to airbrush women out of a perfectly legitimate picture? What is the publicity you get for that? What's the propaganda? I don't know. Can anybody help us? Well, interesting times in UK, and what better place to go than the BBC, who have been promoting the fact that boys should be playing with dolls. And this was the headline. It says Jo Swinson, MP, in a report is encouraging boys to play with dolls because this is going to make boys softer, more cuddly, and then they're going to get more jobs sort of in the care industry. So we're saying, well, of course, the BBC is promoting this because it's helping to break down society. This is the lady. You can see her website. She's talking about all sorts of things. She's welcoming school hours change for local for local pupils. I thought this was a wonderful website because she's offering tours of Parliament. And if you have a look at the little picture, bottom right, of course, that is how Parliament operates in Britain these days. Nobody is there to debate anything of substance. And if it's child abuse, you can probably expect 12 people in that house. Yeah,
can I just say, what is happening after seeing the story? I didn't know you'd had this story, and I wasn't aware of this story. But the poor boys of this country, of what they are going through, they're being encouraged to have a cervical smear, a cervical vaccine, a cervical cancer vaccine. They are drowning in bisphenol A, BPA, which gives estrogen. It's making men a lot more feminine. We're now having people like this fool of a woman saying that boys should be playing with dolls. So men are not wanting this next generation of the UK's boys to grow up as men.
The idea is to break down the proper balance between gender, women are women, men are men, and that's what makes the world interesting, exciting, and produces the children. So what is the agenda? The Alinsky communitarian agenda is that you break down families, you break down identity as individuals. We will do some more detailed stuff on this, but that's the background from the BBC. What better place to jump than the royal family? And here's the Express. Will Prince Andrew brave a royal trip to Davos? The Duke, 54, apparently is due to represent the Queen at the World Economic Forum in Davos on January the 21st. But Buckingham Palace is still to formally announce the high-profile visit. Now, my question is, the Queen, what's it to do with the Queen? This man is going there to represent the British nation. So why would any of us want this man to represent us on the world stage as a man who likes associating with a convicted paedophile? This is nothing to do with what the Queen thinks. This is to do what the British public are prepared to accept. And it's absolutely fascinating that we're still seeing the mainstream press and media kowtowing to the royal family as if these people are some sort of gods that we can't challenge. Well, I'm happy to say live on air, I warned Prince Andrew that when he was going to his visit at Oxford and Cherwell Valley College, he was doing so to a college where youngsters were being abused. And what did he do? He carried on with the visit
and gets photographed in the actual the actual place where kids were being abused.
Absolutely, it was a media opportunity to promote the very college where the abuse was going on, and that was after emails and telephone conversations to his PA saying maybe this is not a good idea. But let's go to the Express here. and we've got one of the royal journalists, well, in fact, Sunday Express royal editor, Camilla Tomini. And what she got to say, this is a video clip embedded in the Express website, and apparently it's going to look bad if he didn't go to Davos from his perspective, from Prince Andrew's perspective. So never mind what the public thinks, the fact that Britain's reputation is being trashed by this man, the Express is more concerned what he thinks. And her information, apparently inside information, is that he will go. And we're going to say, well, this woman seems quite unable to understand why any of us should have concerns at a senior member of the royal family mixing with paedophiles. So it's a fascinating situation. What is it? Has this woman not got the intelligence to understand what's really going on here? Is she so used to being fed the good news stories about the royal family?
She looks quite young, so maybe Andrew's taken her out and entertained her. Possibly.
Possibly.
Chucking it out there.
Well, how about this? Here we are. North of the border, there's apparently proposals to have a blitz on sex shows, and they're getting worried about some of the material that's going to appear at the Edinburgh Festival. And they're saying we're going to close down these lap dancing clubs. And now there's a backlash with people saying, no, we need plays investigating and promoting prostitution and sex and sexual behaviour. And isn't it amazing they can close down the lap dancing clubs, but when it comes to child abuse, and we've got Inset, we've got Holly Gregg, Scotland is totally unable to investigate or deal with anything. And we just remind ourselves that, of course, it was clubs like Violate that hit the headlines a little while ago, Scotland's longest running monthly fetish club. These are all excerpts from their own website. Dougie Gobb, I won't repeat the rest of it. We can see what's going on. But of course it was Robert Greene and others concerned at standards in Scottish public life have alleged that some 6 Scottish judges, today unnamed, are members of Violate, together with other court officials and other public professionals, including members of the legal profession. All of a sudden, Scottish police were desperate to question Robert Greene on this issue. So it's pretty amazing. And we'll end on this one, which of course is the Church of England is suddenly putting its head above the parapet, being a little bit critical of the government over electioneering and what's planned for the future. And we're just going to say, well, where were they when the Lib Lab Con started to promote Satanism in the armed forces? So we'll end by saying, where are the real Christians in the Church of England? Do any still exist? That's our challenge. If anybody wants to respond to that, we'd be glad to hear from you.
That's it. Just a quick last word from Guy Taylor. Guy, what date, can you just remind everyone what date the next hearing is, please?
Yeah, the next hearing for our case is on February the 8th and 9th. That is supposed to be a trial for at least 2 days. And I'd also like to remind everybody of next Friday, Tom Crawford's, and please get in touch with us.
Lovely. Thanks. Guy, how do people get in touch with you direct?
They can get in touch with us through the Facebook pages of Response, Eviction, Fraud of the Bank, or Beat the Bailiffs. But Eviction, Fraud of the Bank is direct to Tom and Tom's family. So
fantastic.
Get in contact with us.
Thanks, Guy. Take care. See you soon.
Bye.
Okay, well, there we are. Slightly extended news today, but we think Britain is worth it. We need to get the truth out about what's happening. Unfortunately, there will be no UK column news tomorrow, Friday, as we have some important things to deal with here in Plymouth. And hopefully that is going to help us deliver a better service in the future, as they say.
What's going on then? I don't even know
We're going to be transformed. We're having a change agenda in UK column.
Shape-shifting?
Well, no shape-shifting, but we're going to be transforming to make us more relevant to the changing times. More diverse. Okay, well, there it is. This is what's really going on in UK. Please recommend us to your friends. And I believe there should be a repeat of this news this evening.
9 o'clock.
Okay, thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.